Well, Carey Perloff, I'm incredibly excited to talk to a fellow San Franciscan, but also talk to you about Leopoldstadt, Tom Stoppard's last and arguably most personal play. And I'm curious and fascinated and grateful to you for how you've managed to wrangle this epic historical family drama into a size that's available for theaters like Writers Theater and theaters across the country to perform. Was that a struggle, or was Sir Tom amenable to this idea?
Tom was very excited about the idea. I mean, I think he always knew that because he's a British playwright in a country that has subsidized theater, he spent his career writing big, muscular, epic plays that they could put on. And if we hadn't found a way to take Leopoldstadt, which was 23 actors, adult actors, and 8 children on Broadway, and make it a somewhat more manageable size, it wouldn't have had a life in America because we just don't have the subsidy and the resources that the British theater has. It did not substantially, I don't think, in any way alter or change the play's scope. What we did is sort of reimagine the doubling so that the same actors could carry characters across time, like wonderful Justin Albender, who plays young Nathan. That was a child in the original production and then an adult, but he looks young enough he can play the 16-year-old Nathan and then the 30-year-old Nathan. Or Jesse Fisher plays the young Rosa and then carries that across to the much older Rosa. So we figured out a doubling chart, and we did cut a couple of very small characters. In fact, one we cut when we did it at the Huntington, and then the last time I saw Beloved Tom, which was August 21st of last year, we had dinner, my husband and I, with Tom and Sabrina, and then we spread the script out on his dining room table and figured out a way to take out Kurt Zenner, who was a tiny character and had to double with Ludwig. And I didn't want that double because Ludwig, played by the astonishing Joey Slotnick,
Yeah.
you don't want him to double. You want to just see that character. So, over time we worked it. But I will say that one of the many amazing, wonderful things about my longtime collaboration with Stoppard is that he loved creating bespoke productions and bespoke scripts, and he was never doctrinaire about it must be done like this or it can only work like that. He was always down for recreating.
Well, it absolutely has always felt this play particularly is a work in progress. My wife and I are good friends with Adrian Scarborough, who won the Olivier for playing Herman.
Yeah.
And when I bought the script in the UK and asked him to sign it, he flipped through it and he went, "Oh, this is not what we did," you
Right, right,
know,
right, right. Yes.
because it's constantly being reshaped. And that's kind of, I mean, this is what we say as playwrights, right? You never finish a play, you just abandon it.
Right.
But I imagine Tom must have been, and I call him Tom because I've never met him. Um, but it was funny. Once I was in the National Theater backstage pub for the artists with Adrian after a production of a play, and the only famous face in the pub was Tom Stoppard over in the corner, and I went, "What a
Smoking,
beautiful thing!"
undoubtedly. Yes.
Smoking but in very quiet conversation with whatever actor he was talking to. Um, um, but I would imagine he must have been enormously grateful to you for your directorial eye and willing to make changes because you had clearly thought about the play so deeply.
We had a very, very long history. I met him when I was first at ACT 30 something years ago when I was doing Arcadia. And, I ended up during COVID writing a book called Pinter and Stoppard, a director's view about my collaborations with the two of them. And, one thing I described is the first time I met Tom after I'd done Arcadia at the bar at the National Theater. And I was so nervous. This was Tom Stoppard. And he walked in and I had this palpable feeling of recognition. I thought, oh, it's you, because my mother was a Viennese refugee. My family were Central European Jews, Viennese Jews. He felt so familiar to me, and I think in some way I felt that way to him. So, We loved the same things. We laughed at the same things. We were interested in the same things intellectually. So we worked really closely together for 3 decades. Every time we did a play of his in San Francisco, we did the premieres of Indian Ink, American premiere, the American premiere of Invention of Love. He was always with us and loved being there and loved the process. He knew my company very well. So over time, there was a lot of trust.
That sort of lovely detailed script work is so much fun and rewarding and insightful. Can you talk about how you then get that work up on its feet with actors in a room? Because these are different muscles and different interpretive skills, and it's a different kind of task.
I always say to the actors, that what I loved so much about Stoppard is he knew that ideas were sexy. We don't feel this way in America. We're mostly quite anti-intellectual and we're very worried about putting ideas in front of an audience that it'll be dry. But for Stoppard, the dialectic was the delight, and he loved language and ideas. And maybe because English was his second language, like Joseph Conrad, he reveled in it. So when you act Stoppard, you have to revel in that language, and you have to really own it, and you have to learn to think fast. So it's a muscle. But he also said this thing I'll never forget, sitting in tech with him. When he'd watch a run through, he would write in the side of his script LA, which meant look after. So if there was a word or a phrase or an idea that was going to come up later, the first actor had to send it up like an actor throwing up a ball to hit a tennis serve so that the other actor could bat it back. And I do that with them all the time. Just in notes yesterday, right before our opening, I gave them a thread of things that came up in scene one that were going to pay off hours later, and that they had to really look after. That it's like being in a team sport, and the language has to be shared and sort of generously looked after, so that the laugh happens or the idea happens, and that everybody is responsible for carrying the themes of the play through. So that's a big part of the rehearsal process, is figuring out how to lift the language, really anatomizing the arguments, but also looking at the subterranean, all the desire and longing and grief under the play.
I love that. Ideas are sexy. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm keeping that. um, when you did it at the Huntington, did you do it at their main theater on the Huntington
Yes.
Avenue there?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely a big proscenium show, which is how Tom always wrote, because those were the theaters that he wrote for. Although he did the hard problem at the Dorfman at the National, which is a thrust. So I'm so heartbroken that he's not with us to see this, because my feeling when Braden Abraham asked me to do this at Writers, I was thrilled. Partly I love working for Braden. I've worked with him from his Seattle rep days. Partly I had always wanted to work with these incredible Chicago actors. But partly I'm a Jean Gang groupie. She's my favorite architect, and from years back. And I wanted to see what this play would be like in a thrust. It's very different. It's incredibly intimate. You are in the room with that family, which makes the end even more heartbreaking. It's a challenge, to send this kind of language around the room in that space. It's a different kind of challenge from what it was at the Huntington, but it's been a great adventure.
Well, and it's a challenging space from seeing shows from the beginning when they first
Yeah,
opened. It's a high space. And so
right.
when we saw your preview a week ago, we were in the second row. I'm sure that at tonight's opening we will be sitting somewhere else.
Well, I
So I
hope it
can't.
travels even up to the top.
Well, and even on the night we were there, you were in one far side of the audience and Braden was on the other far side of the
Correct.
audience. And I thought, well, that's lovely to see.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
director is directing
You
for
have
everybody.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my question about the intimacy, because it's so it's a tough play dramaturgically, because there is so much going on in that first scene, all those balls being lofted in the air.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but then you guys stick the landing, and I don't want to give too much away, but you stick the landing so beautifully and so powerfully with that scene. It occurred to me, except for the list at the end, it ends like Arcadia a little bit.
Kind of. It, when he when Septimus says to Thomasina, when all the things have been solved, and I'm just paraphrasing, whatever, then we will dance. I think, for Tom, the waltz was a kind of magical shorthand for both desire and memory and stirring a family back into a happier time. So it's a really beautiful way to end a play.
Boy, we could almost end our conversation right there because that was sort of perfect. um, but I was gonna. There's something about the power. Like I can. I've never seen this play in a proscenium, but I can't imagine it being as powerful as it
Mm.
is in this smaller, intimate space.
I mean,
What do you think?
I do have to say, these actors are incredible. What you have in Chicago, which I tried to create at my theater at ACT in San Francisco, but is so rare in the American theater, is a sort of genuine sense of company. These actors, many of them trained in Chicago, they live in Chicago, they work in Chicago, they have worked together in Chicago over many, many years. When you watch Jan Barford and Joey Slotnick, or you watch Kate Fry and Eric Hellman, or whatever, Brennan, and you are seeing actors who are absolutely at the top of their game because they work all the time in theater. They're not sitting around in LA all day waiting for their commercials, or just waiting tables in New York. They really, this community does seem to look after its artists, and they work a lot. And so I just loved being in the room with them. I felt like we never wasted time. You'd give a note, they'd take it. They'd run with it. They were brave with each other. They watched each other in every run through, and they were moved and they laughed and they cared about it. Nobody was sitting on their phones. It's very rare. So, that's what I think makes it so unique. And to do Leopoldstadt in that space, also the space itself is this envelope. And I will also say, that we're in a very Jewish community, and you can feel that. The arguments in the play are these sort of deep and complicated arguments, which we are still, alas, in the middle of right now, about the future of Judaism in the world, about Israel, about assimilation versus Zionism, about anti-Semitism. These arguments have only gotten more acute since Tom wrote the play. So to do the play in a community that has a big Jewish population is also a very profound and moving experience.
And to do it with these actors,
Yeah.
it's I'm not Jewish, but obviously the ideas are appealing to me and powerful to me. But anytime I see good artists telling any kind of story, it's like, oh, these are my people, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, it's so heartbreaking because this is absolutely my mother's story. My mother came from this highly intellectual, cultured Viennese family. She was 7 in 1938 when she fled Vienna. Unlike the family in the play, my family miraculously got out, almost all of them, just the day after the Anschluss, knew they had to go. Um, so this, but so much of this play is close to me. And if you are sitting up above, when they open the photo album and look at those photographs, those pictures are my family. So that's my Viennese grandmother when she was a little girl, and my mother in her later Hosen before she left. So I feel this is also a way of honoring her.
Well, now I definitely want to sit high and look down. Well, and I'll just say this last thing: the what you said about the actors is really, really true. Not just you also have young actors like Grania Ortlieb, who, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the best
Yeah.
actors in the city and needs to work
Yep.
more.
Yep.
Um, but you've
Well,
also got, as you mentioned, Justin and Jesse. When I saw the maid push that cart through in the early part of the thing, I went, "Wait, who's that playing the maid? Wait, Jesse Fisher's playing a maid? What? Oh, oh, this must pay off later." And boy, does it! Yeah.
Only Jessie could steal a whole scene as the maid. But to me, she's just definitive as Rosa at the end of the play. And I think it's partly also close to her family history and very emotionally resonant to her. And she's such a charismatic and complicated actress. She really pulls off the end brilliantly. Yeah.
Well, Carey, congratulations. I look forward to seeing you tonight, and please come back to Glencoe more.
I would love to. I've had such a wonderful experience. So thank you and see you tonight.
Yes, you will.
This podcast is a production of the Reduced Shakespeare Company, reducing expectations since 1981. Go to reducedshakespeare.com for performance dates, actor bios, email newsletters, and so much less.